What a roller coaster. Game's canceled. Okay, alright, fine. I'll explain. Here's what happened. I finally got back to where I was before in terms of prototyping, but did so in a significantly cleaner, more efficient fashion. Ready to proceed, I had been observing Stormgate, which is another RTS game coming out sometime next year or the year after, I'm not sure. But that game is built on Unreal Engine 5. And I was curious to learn more about it. And besides the fact that they stole my idea of making an accessible team-based RTS, the other side of this is they talk deeply about how much work they've been putting in to get Unreal doing what they needed to do. That cued something in me that I ignored for about a week. But now I have gone in and decided to test it. What it cued in me was the thought that maybe I should figure out how efficient my code is at scale. The answer is it isn't. It's super janky and broken. And after doing a little bit of research, I determined that this is not my fault. Well, sort of is. It's not because my code is inherently bad, although I'm sure it can be optimized a lot. It's more so that blueprints aren't meant to handle that many characters kind of going at once. The thing is that every unit in an RTS game is like thinking and checking, what it's in range of, what's out of range of, where it's being told to move, what abilities it has, tracking its cooldown on top of all the visual stuff like running animations and visual effects. This could barely handle like 40 units that weren't doing any of that except moving. And that has left a very sad, sour taste in my mouth. Here's the way that it has to go. So I've gotten a bunch of this stuff to this point using blueprints, right? The programming, visual scripting language atop of C++ in Unreal. And that is why the whole premise of this entire series has been I'm going to program an RTS with no programming experience, or very little. And I have successfully gotten to this point doing that. I draw the line at having to learn C++ because I have very little interest in doing that. It will not bring me joy, and I don't feel like I'm ready for that, even if I wanted to. Keep that in mind. Log that for later. So the next thing that I discovered once I realized that I was not going to be able to build this to scale, which scale, mind you, was I planned to have about 200 units per player, a total of 6 players, plus some extras for change. That's about 1,500 units in a game at a time, with at least the option to have 1,000 of them on screen at a time. It's possible they could all be crammed in the same battle for some reason. So the game has to be able to handle that. And I couldn't even get 50 units per player to work. I couldn't get more than 40 units to work at all. Once you have more than 40, it starts to freak out, and you begin getting terrible performance every time you issue a command. But Unreal has a system for this, a system for handling large quantities of entities, and that's called MASS, M-A-S-S. Unreal MASS is an ECS system, or entity component system. This is a different way to do programming than object-oriented programming, which is what Blueprints largely works with. Notice there that I said Blueprints is object-oriented, and this MASS system is ECS. Now I'm going to need ECS to do an RTS game properly. And that means that I need to learn C++ to use MASS. And that's not going to happen. Like I said, I don't feel ready for that, and I don't have an interest in it, to be frank. It's above my pay grade as a programmer, and it's not what I want to spend my time doing right now. So, unfortunately, my plan to build an RTS game using very little programming experience and blueprints has hit a wall. The wall of all walls, the engine can't do it wall. Not to say that Unreal can't handle large amounts of units on screen at a time, it obviously can, but you need to use mass, and I'm not willing to learn C++ to do that. So, unfortunately, our journey ends here. Now, as discouraging as that might sound, it's actually nice to know that it's more of a limitation on the engine than it is my capacity to do it. Obviously, I could learn C++ and then use mass and then be back on track, but that's a massive asterisk on top of, making an RTS game anyways, right? So I don't foresee that being something I'm interested in doing anytime soon. And I may come back to C++ eventually, but to do that, I'm going to need some experience making a game in the first place. So for now, this series is done. The biggest pieces of advice I can offer is know going in if you're trying to make an RTS in Unreal. A good large scale RTS, I should say. You could probably get away with, a Dawn of War sized game or something. To be fair, I know a little about that series with just blueprints, but if you want to have sort of a Command and Conquer scale RTS game, you need mass and C++. Nothing else will do. For those that have followed this so far, thank you very much for following along and seeing where it goes. Believe me, I'm more disappointed than anybody that this is where we've ended up, but you have to acknowledge when you've hit a limit, and my limit is my patience to learn C++, evidently. So we'll be back at some point. I'm not scrapping the idea, and I'm keeping it shelved for now. Project Element will live on, but I think for now I need to refocus onto a different project and see where that takes me. So stay tuned here on the SkyPyre channel, as well as our social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and the like. Keep up to date on what we're doing. Check out Evasive Maneuvers, which, as the time of posting, is still available for Next Fest on Steam. And, I'll be in touch when the next project gets underway. Bye-bye for now.